Welcome to the Legally Speaking podcast. I'm your host, Rob Hanna. This week, I'm absolutely delighted to be joined by the wonderful Andrew Waddell. Andrew is the Managing Director of Winslow Tax Law Limited. Andrew trained at Eversheds and joined the firm Lovells. After Lovells merged with Hogan and Hartson, Andrew was appointed a Senior Tax Associate. He advises on real estate transactions, corporate mergers and acquisitions. Andrew also has experience in private client tax consultancy. So a very, very warm welcome, Andrew.
Thanks, Rob. What an introduction.
It's an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. And before we go through all your amazing projects and experiences and what you're doing for the legal community, we have a customary icebreaker question here on the Legally Speaking podcast, which is, on the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being very real, what would you rate the hit TV series Suits in terms of its reality?
Oh dear, this is where I'm going to be showing my age. I have to confess, I've probably only ever seen an episode of it, but what am I going to say? It's all very glamorous, but they do look like they pull all-nighters, so I'm going to say it's probably a 7.
A 7, fair enough. And it's good that you've seen an episode, because most people say they've never seen it, or they have seen it, they hate it, or they love it. But with that, let's move swiftly on and talk about something super exciting, all about you. So why don't you start by telling our listeners a little bit about your background and journey?
Sure. Well, I mean, you can probably tell from my accent, I'm not originally from England. I come from a place called Carrickfergus, which is about 10 miles outside Belfast. It's sort of like a seaside commuter town. Went to school there, and then after I did my A-levels, moved over to England to university in Leeds. Studied law in Leeds, had a great time there. Stuck around in Yorkshire, went up to the College of Law in York to do the LPC, and then came back to Leeds to train at Eversheds. So that was my sort of how I got from Northern Ireland over to England, and then pretty much stayed in England for the next 20 years. At the moment, I sort of split my time between London and visiting back home in Belfast, but I pretty much moved over and then didn't look back.
Yeah, and I'm making it my mission as a Leeds University person myself to get as many Leeds University alumni on the show.
What year were you there?
Oh, it's all a bit of a blur, Andrew. It's all a bit of a blur, Andy. I can't tell you. But remember, this is a show about you, not me. So
recognize you from Compass.
Yeah, exactly. But you mentioned you obviously trained at Eversheds, and then you joined Lovells Tax Department. Why did you choose to specialise in tax?
I didn't start off, in sort of academics wanting to specialise in tax. And, if anything, I didn't even know I wanted to be a lawyer. I got good exam results. So I went to do a law degree as a sort of, it's a good degree to have. And then you may not want to go into law after. And I sort of just got swept along with it. During your degree, people are doing sort of legal placements, back schemes, things like that. And I just got into it, enjoyed it. And and got offered a training contract with Eversheds, and it was a good opportunity. In terms of going into tax, that's again when I joined there, I didn't really, to be honest, I didn't have any thoughts of what discipline to go into. I was quite interested in business law as opposed to criminal or family or things like that. But it really just came from doing the seats in the departments. At that time you either did 4 or 6 seats, and you moved around, and you did property, construction, litigation. And my corporate seat was tax, and just really liked it from there, and decided to specialise into it.
Yeah, and you've been hugely successful, and we'll come on to the present day shortly. But as part of your journey, you were at Hogan Lovells, and you were appointed as a senior tax associate there. What did you most enjoy about being a senior tax associate? And obviously with tax law, there's a lot of skills. So what skills did you particularly pick up and learn as part of that role?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say you sort of learn anything as part of that role. It's like anyone who's listening to this who's a lawyer will know, as as your PQE develops through associate and senior associate and towards partner, you just accumulate more experience, you work on more complex transactions, and you become sort of self-sufficient, if you like, in the performance of your job. And I guess the senior lawyer band of people within the organization is really where you're at you're doing the optimum legal work. The senior partner may be looking after client relationships and overseeing things, but the senior lawyers are really executing the transactions and doing the heavy lifting of the technical work. So it's at that point of the career where really I think it's the fastest development of your technical experience. And I would say that to this day, I probably did more sort of involved technical work at that point than I even do now.
Yeah, and let's talk about the now, because you are now the managing director of one of the best boutique tax law firms out there, undoubtedly, and I'm a massive fan of what you're doing. Well, it's so true, because what you and the Winslow tax team are doing is incredible. So, talk us through what a day in the life of a managing director looks like, and what was your inspiration for founding the firm?
Well, I'll start with the second of those two questions. I mean, how we sort of got to where we are now. I mean, I really enjoyed my time in big law, as people call it. Evershed is a great place to study. It's such a great ethos in the firm. I loved it there. Lovells, or Hogan Lovells as it now is, I maybe didn't realise at the time just how much training and how much development I was getting, because you're surrounded by fantastic colleagues. There's such an infrastructure of sort of development. But I wanted to do something more entrepreneurial, not completely move away from tax, but to use the training and the skills that I had. And so I left Hogan Lovells to go and do some consultancy work for a boutique and also for some other law firms. And firms were just approaching me saying, we don't have a tax partner or a senior tax person. We don't need one all of the time, but a big M&A job has come to us. Can you help us with the tax aspects so we can keep that bit of business? And so I did a few projects like that, and I really got buzz out of being my own boss, but still keeping my hand in and doing the stuff that I enjoyed and what I was trained in. And that's sort of how I made my sort of transition from being a sort of an employed lawyer into running a boutique. And it was that middle part of, if you like, being a sole practitioner consultant that I really liked. But I guess the key thing that I realized was that if you're going to have law firms as clients, then it's much better if, rather than being a one-man band consultant, that you are a fully SRA regulated and insured law firm, because that is a really good fit alongside your clients. And also you need more than one person to deliver that proper city quality advice. So that's sort of where Winslows sort of came from. What does the day in the life of a managing director look like? Well, it's one of those things. It's, when you first start out and you've left big law, you sort of, something comes across your desk and you sort of think, whose job is it to do this? And you sort of look around and you realize, oh no, it's my job now. And so you wear quite a lot of hats, especially in the infancy of any business. So you're overseeing technical work, you're working with partners to win new work, recruitment, ops, sales, marketing. It's the same as any business owner, and law just so happens to be the product that we sell, tax law. But everything else is, I'm sure, the same as anyone listening to this who runs any sort of small professional services or boutique.
Yeah, and you do such a tremendous job of it. And it's so true, isn't it? Because when you start up, people will ring in and say, can I speak to the HR department? Speaking. Can I speak to the legal department? Speaking. Yeah, exactly. As you rightly say, and it's so true, you have to be able to wear so many hats. And it's great that you've had that entrepreneurial flair, because, many of the legal professionals may be looking to try and express that, but don't take that step. So it's great that you have taken your legal skill set and that entrepreneurial flair and set up something super exciting, because, Winslow Law, as you mentioned, you support other law firms which don't necessarily have tax departments. So, in what ways do you provide that sort of full support to people? Tell us more.
Yeah, well, I mean, if you took, for example, the top 200 or 300 law firms in the country, once you get below the sort of, your magic circle, silver circle, international firms, they're the top massive 50 firms. Once you get below that, you'll find a lot of those really good quality firms, for one reason or another, have evolved without their own internal tax department, or have evolved with a skeleton tax department. So when it gets really busy, the 2 or 3 people can't staff the work. And so what we do is we plug into those firms alongside them and deliver a service on their transactions or on their projects in as integrated a way as we possibly can. So we try to recreate for them the service delivery as if we were sitting down the hallway from them. And so, if give you an example, a firm has a great corporate department, but has evolved without a tax department. We would come in alongside them and we would do all of the tax aspects of the transaction, working and running it through the lead corporate partner, doing everything that we would do if we were sat inside their firm, aligning ourselves on price, aligning ourselves on terms, and just generally being part of the team. So that's what we aim to do, to give a seamless sort of joined up service.
And that's the point you mentioned there, because that's what you're really good in terms of that onboarding piece. Because you've been doing it so long now, you do have that experience and expertise. It is almost like a plug in and play, because you really understand the model, right? For people listening in who might be thinking about that.
Yeah, I mean, exactly. And our clients, I mean, we work mainly with law firms, but we also support some accountancy firms. We also have what we call direct clients, who might be large corporates, high net worth individuals. We don't specifically work for law firms, but it is a large part of our practice. And because we've all come from large city firms, we all know what the environment's like inside a solicitor's practice. So we know how the pace at which transactions work. We know how our colleagues in other departments want to receive their tax advice in a sort of commercial layman's, way, which is pragmatic and is going to help them get their deal over the line. It's not going to be sent to them in a sort of academic thesis wrapped in pink string in sort of 4 weeks' time. It's aligning ourselves based on our experience and how to deliver it. In terms of, what we do, I mean, corporate support we do a lot of. Real estate we support. We've got lots of great real estate law firm clients, and we do everything for them from transactional support to sort of legal opinions on stamp duty, VAT, and all those other exciting things. Employment lawyers we support, finance lawyers, and we have just recently started to build out our private client department, which is effectively bringing real technical private client tax support to great private client generalist practices. So lots of exciting stuff going on.
Yeah, and you keep super busy. And just want to sort of go back to your journey, really, because there's a lot of learns that we want to kind of pick out from all the things that you've achieved and done, because you also spent time working as a tax consultant, and maybe people less familiar. Can you explain what that involved?
Yeah, well, I mean, tax consultant is just a sort of fairly generic term, meaning a self-employed tax advisor. So, what you'd be doing would be depending upon the client that you had at the time. So whilst I was doing that, I was doing some work for a boutique who had sort of private clients and was doing tax planning work. I was also working for a series of law firms who needed a sort of, I feel like a locum tax lawyer or tax partner. The biggest difference, I suppose, is that when you're working in that role, whilst the technical work you're doing is the same as what you've always done, which is why they've brought you in, because you're self-employed, you have a whole load of other things to think about. It's not just the case of the work arrives in your inbox and you do it. You're having to think about developing a network, business development, nurturing existing clients, all of the sort of things which go along with the sort of, mini business, if you like, the mini business of a sole practitioner. And that, I guess, is where I sort of cut my teeth on how to do those things in a bigger scale in a fully regulated business. Because if you're not good at any of those other non-legal aspects, you can be the best lawyer in the world, but your phone isn't going to ring, your work is not going to be there. So I think that's one of the biggest learnings I had. It's not about you as the lawyer. Nobody cares. You're just a service provider. It's about what the clients and the customers, as I like to call them, it's what they need for their business. And once you start thinking like that, you start realizing that there's all facets of what you do have equal importance, not just knocking out the tax advice.
And that's such important advice. And thanks so much for sharing that, Andrew, because you're absolutely right. It's never about you. It's always about them. And I think that's such staple wisdom shared there. So thanks for that. Time for a quick break from the show. Are you a legal aid practitioner in England and Wales, specializing in civil or criminal legal aid matters? If you are, this message is for you. As a legal aid solicitor, you don't have time to waste on legal aid case management software that doesn't work to your needs. That's why Clio has developed a quicker, more accurate and affordable solution for legal aid solicitors in England and Wales. It could save you hours in your month, particularly when it comes to end of month invoicing and claims to the legal aid agency. To see how it all works, visit clio.com/UK/legal aid. That's Clio, CLIO.com/UK/legal aid. Now back to the show. This is where I get to tell you how excited we are, Andrew, because as you know, the Y's partnered with us, KC Partners. This is the home of the Legally Speaking podcast. So, I think it's absolutely fantastic, the energy, the effort, the resources, the individuals that you have. But can you tell us more about the Wise and what exactly is it?
Wise Magazine. Well, Wise Magazine started off life about, I think it was 2 and a bit years ago. And someone was saying to us, you need to have a newsletter. And I was just like, look, I'm not circulating some sort of naff PDF newsletter. We're not doing it. We're not doing it. If we're going to do it, we have to have something that is like really interesting, really unique, looks great, but yet has some good substance to it. So the Wise is hosted on a sort of unique digital platform, and it goes out bi-monthly. We started off, the first few editions were sort of, basically it was a tax magazine. And then what we had is we had a guest special where we invited lots of other lawyers or non-lawyers to write about, I think it was around the pandemic, from your corner of the business world, how you seeing things, what are the challenges? And we just realized that actually it was so much better having a collection of ideas. And let's be honest, nobody wants to read about tax from cover to cover. Not even I do. So it sort of evolved, and now it's yes, there's a bit of tax from us in there, but it's also other legal leaders, whether they be law firm owners, experts in property and corporate. And then we've got things like wealth managers, recruitment experts like your good self. We've got, people talking about lifestyle things, wine, luxury ski chalets. We've got, electric German cars and how that fits in and what the taxation of them is. And, just trying to make it a bit more of an interesting read for lawyers, business owners.
But again, it's such a great example of how it's for them, because you're right. Certain people may not want to, they might want to read a little bit about the day job and what's going on, but it's community. You're really kind of delivering to your community. And that builds on nicely to what I was going to say next, because I think in one of your recent editions of the Wise, you outline the Wise mission is to draw together these experts, thought leaders, innovators, and disruptors with like-minded legal professionals so that as a community, we can all enhance our knowledge and skills and together truly shape our industry into a more modern, free-thinking, and inclusive environment. I nearly got it out, but that's just brilliant.
What a well-written paragraph. I have to say, that sounded great. We should turn the Wise into an audiobook. Narrated by your good self.
Wow, it'd be my absolute pleasure if I got the gig. But with the Wise, the Wise, I know there's so much. You're continually moving. You're an entrepreneurial thinker. You're fast moving. So, what are some of the further developments you foresee with the Wise magazine, and generally, what can people expect?
Yeah, picking up on your first point there about how we're trying to harness, the whole community. And really what's behind the Wise is the idea that just because you're in a boutique business, whether it be law, tax, recruitment, or whatever, doesn't mean that you can't punch above your weight by clubbing together with other boutiques. And that's how we operate. We work alongside some great corporate boutiques, real estate, employment, and we are challenging the sort of city firms on projects, and we are delivering the same quality service at a more affordable price. And the ethos of the Wise really is to create a community of these businesses and thought leaders where people can come, share their expertise and ideas, and effectively raise up everybody's understanding of the business issues that are out there. So that's the sort of ethos behind it. It's a sort of not-for-profit venture. It's meant to be there for people to connect with one another and share experience. In terms of what we are up to with next things happening, we've got a very exciting thing about to launch called Wise Live, which is a portal which has all of the usual Wise content in it, but it is somewhere that things can happen in real time. So, for example, Wise is a bi-monthly publication. The Wise Live has the ability to, for example, what would happen if the Prime Minister changed? What would happen if this happened? How would that affect tax policy? How does the war in Ukraine affect the economy and ripple down into tax policy? Things that are happening in real time. 2 months is a long time to wait to say things. So the Wise Live portal is about to launch in the coming weeks. The Wise has also got, I'm not sure if I can say this, a secret partnership under development with a new legal members club called Boutique 100. Which I'm not really sure if I can say anything more about that, because it quietly launches next month. So maybe I've let the cat out of the bag, but there's some stuff going on there around community of experts and things like that with Boutique 100 and Wise. So lots of interesting things. So stay tuned.
Yeah, and I'm super excited. And I just want to, again, draw on what I teach people and bang on about the three C's for modern business, and you've nailed all of them, Andy. It's collaboration, it's content, and it's community. And if you focus on those collaborations, which you just gave some great examples, you produce high quality content, you service your community, then your business is guaranteed to succeed. And the other refreshing aspect for you, Andy, as well, is you're a human lawyer. We have banter, but you're also a top expert in your field. So you've got the interpersonal skills as well as the technical skills. And I think, be more like Andy is what I would tell people.
Honestly, don't. I'm going red. I'm not sure tax lawyer.
Yeah.
But I mean, in all seriousness, you're right, Rob. I mean, it's like what I was saying before. I mean, the customers or the clients don't really care how many exams you've passed or what university you went to or whatever. It's a given that if you go to if you went to any Magic Circle law firm, it's a given that at that level of the market, you're getting a similar quality service from each of those guys. If you go to mid-tier firms, the good ones, you're getting so a lot of it is down to who do you want to work with. Are these a good culture fit for your business and for your projects and whatever? And so you have to have a bit of personality. It's not just about the bookwork, because the bookwork's a given and it's a constant, and you've got to differentiate yourself by trying to give the client something that they feel is a good fit for their organization. Yeah, no,
I couldn't agree. And it's great that you're doing so much extra work, I'd say, to really focus on community. And I want to stick with the whys a little bit longer, because in that same issue that you recently had, you explained law is no longer about a load of grey-haired old white blokes in even greyer tall buildings beasting associate lawyers for 70 hours a week. So with that in mind, how have you seen the law evolve since your training days at Eversheds? And what would you like to see the legal industry regarding inclusion and diversity as it develops?
It's a really good question. I'm going to have to watch what I write from now on, because it comes back at me in interview questions. Good question. I mean, there'll be lots of people, I'm sure, on your podcast, colleagues, who have thoughts from their own personal journeys around race equality, gender equality, things like that. And I can only speak from my own personal experience. So, I mean, the thing that I suppose I've seen is that whenever I first started working in the city, probably around the early 2000s, recruitment, and it'd be really great to get your views on this, but recruitment at that time was some senior partners from private schools, or public schools, they say in England, public school backgrounds and Oxford educations. Graduate recruitment was they went down to the Oxbridge colleges for a couple of days and then put some stands up and then recruited a load of people in their own likeness back into the firm, and so it went on. And, I'm from a sort of, I think in England you would say state school background, local grammar school where I'm from, sort of free to go to sort of thing. And I sort of remember thinking in the city at that time, where are all the smart students from Leeds? Where are all the people that from law school in York? And, it seemed the city had a very much a production line of, private school educated Oxbridge graduates. Now, being still friends with a lot of people who work in the city now, they would say that has definitely changed. And there is now a much more focus on your clients come from all walks of life. The talent pool in the UK is vast, and it doesn't just come from, albeit some really top elite universities. And of course, those guys still should be recruited. But it's more of an open-minded approach to getting a selection of top talent from different walks of life. So that is one thing that I think in my career wasn't great to start with and has changed for the better.
Good. And I'm glad that you've stated that as well. And I know, there are lots of people in the community and people we've had on the show who are really pushing to create change within the industry as well. And we support that definitely here on the Legally Speaking podcast. And to your point, Andy, as well, we challenge firms, because we also say, from the perspective, they'll give us a brief and they'll say we want X, Y, and Z, and we're looking for diverse talent. And then we actually represent the data and suggest, hey, these are the talent profiles, and this is the response rate or rejection levels. Is this just a marketing thing, or is this something you truly genuinely believe in as part of the values and DNA and fabric of the firm? So it's important that we hold people accountable, because it's very easy, like you say, Andy, to put things on websites, but everything that you do, you put the action in, you speak more freely and openly, but back that up with really good quality content and services. And that's why I was so keen to get you on. And, taxes, is a super interesting area of law. And I think you've really brought that to light during this conversation. And with that, what advice would you give before we look to wrap up to any aspiring lawyers who are maybe interested in wishing to specialize in tax? What advice would you give to them? Don't do it.
Don't do something else. No, in all seriousness, I guess the thing is, with tax law, there's only certain law firms would have a tax department for a start. And so if you want to do your route into tax as a lawyer is to do a training contract where you can do a seat in tax. So if you're a student and you're listening to this and you're at the point of picking where you might apply for a back scheme or a training contract, the more corporate influence firms that have tax departments, that is where you will get experience of what it's like to work in a corporate tax department. And so that is your practical route into it. In terms of whether you should do it or not, obviously, I love working in tax. The thing which a lot of people don't realize about tax is, whilst it is highly specialized, it also, on the flip side of that, it is very general, because tax sits in the center of most firms, and you have to advise the corporate guys, the property department, employment, finance. And so you have to develop a working understanding of all of those different departments such that you can overlay your advice into how they do their transactions. So it's technical, but it's also varied. And so I would, anyone who's thinking about it, I would encourage them to do it and to find the right sort of firm that you can get the right training and the right pathway into the profession.
Yeah, and you mentioned so brilliantly throughout that you had received great training from the likes of Eversheds and Lovells, or Hogan Lovells now, as it would be, and how that really helped you get to where you are today. So I think there's some really great learnings you shared with that. As a result of that, I'm sure a lot of people are probably going to want to know more. So if our listeners would like to know more about tax law or Winslow or the Wise magazine, what would be the best way for them to get in contact? Feel free to shout out any of your social media handles or website links, and we'll also share them with this episode for you too.
Yeah, sure. Our website, winslows.co.uk. Check us out on there. It's got information around our services, bits about the current team, their journeys, where they trained, how they made their way into the profession. So that might be of interest to people. For all things Wise related, you can start by accessing the Wise on the Wise LinkedIn page. And from there, it's got all of the information to subscribe if you want to get it direct into your inbox and look at the back copies and the podcasts and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. And we should clarify that it's the Wise with a Z, not an S, folks, just in case anyone's listening and I haven't been pronouncing it as correctly as I should have. But Andrew, thank you so much for coming on the show. It's been an absolute pleasure. So wishing you, all of the team over at Winslow and on the Wise magazine, lots of continued success. But for now, from all of us on the Legally Speaking podcast, over and out. This week's review comes from Angleston. Perfect for law students. 5 stars. Rob is a thoroughly engaging host who gets the best out of all his guests, makes for fascinating listening and very informative on all aspects that a law student would look for. Applications, commercial awareness, life as a lawyer, etc. I think it also makes law seem more approachable in the sense that all the guests seem to be easy to talk to and enthusiastic about things outside of the law as well. Law firm partners seem to be a lot less scary when you've heard them talk, and about their former life as a DJ. All round great podcast. Thank you so much, Angleston, for your kind words and informative review. From all of us at Legally Speaking Podcast, we appreciate you.